In today's video, we're taking a look ahead to the new format over in Japan at the equivalent of like League Cups challenges. They've been playing with the new stuff. We're going to take a look at lists that are winning currently, the top 4s, the top 8s, to see what is going to be good going into the new format. I've seen a few tier lists, just sort of pulled together from those results. If you do want to see those, normally the best person to check is Omnipoke, so I will link his channel down below. He normally takes a deep dive into it, looks at all the lists, combines all the data. But in this one, we're just going to take a look at some lists and the decks maybe you should be prioritizing heading into the new format, looking to build if you're looking to switch decks. I've just locked in Charizard for now. I'm going to play that for the next few months and then jump on to something like Future or Ancient Box. Very excited to get into these new cards, so let's jump into it. So this is the top 4 of the most recent, I'm going to call them cups or challenges. I'll call them leagues. It's fine. Tournaments. Tournaments make sense. So this is a Charizard list, as you can see here. Fairly standard. It's got just the one Charmeleon, no change there. Entei, we can see, has come back in. Squover's very interesting. It is a Bibarel build. So we are seeing that rise in popularity more than the Pidgeot, which is, considering Path's gone, is very surprising. Pidgeot can just grab you what you need. I guess if you need multiple things, Bibarel is giving you that option. Obviously with the Squover as well, it's a even better chance to find what you need. You got the fleet footed from the Entei. I do like the Entei because Charizard does struggle attacking early. The maximum belt definitely helps, but we do see the prime catch it in this one, which is why we're seeing a slightly different tactic. We have got the Cryptomaniac, I think that's what it's called, something like that, which lets you put 2 cards at the top of your deck. Works perfect with Squover, with Bibarel. So yeah, really nice there. Really nice combination of cards. We're seeing slightly less Arven, which makes sense. Completely dropping the Evo tool, so we're not going down that route, and it is just the 3 rare candy. Obviously, no Pidgeot. I'm actually tempted to build this. I think the devolution only hits the Pidgeot build, so I kind of like moving into this one in the new format, but we will see. Plenty of testing still ahead, but that is first place at this tournament. Second place, we've got Giratina Arceus, so it's being built slightly different now. It's got the Iron Leaves in there to deal with Charizard, which I do really like. The Radiant Gardevoir is quite interesting, and I am surprised to see most decks going for Squover and Bibarel. It doesn't, yeah, I guess it works with Arceus decks. Sharon's Care there, obviously able to pick stuff up. We have got the Maximum Belt, which I think is it's a must in an Arceus deck. I think every Arceus deck should be playing this. It means you're knocking out your Miraidons, Iron Hands, the stuff you're hitting into, rather than just damaging them. It's an absolute game changer. It also helps Giratina reach for those bigger knockouts on the Charizards. So I think this is going to be a really interesting deck, and I think it's going to be a really powerful archetype heading into the new format. So I'm very excited to see how this plays. Gardevoir is actually quite annoying because it reduces 20 damage instead of healing, so it can be difficult to take knockouts on some of these Pokemon. Also seeing some disruption from the Pokemon League headquarters. I quite like that. Obviously now Path is gone, this makes sense. It's more disruption. It's good against those big basic Pokemon decks. So yeah, that should be quite interesting. Coming in at 3rd place, we've got the Cheese String Boy himself. We've got Goldengo. My girlfriend recently played this to Liverpool Regionals, and she managed to pick up 4 wins. It's her first like proper tournament of any kind, really, and it's with Goldengo. So very proud of her, but it's good to see it's strong going into the new format. Obviously, with Path going, Goldengo gets much more powerful, able to draw those cards with no real way to stop it now. So this is going to be absolutely flying through its deck. I'd like to see more of these Cryptomaniacs because you can literally stack the top of your deck legally, most importantly. Stack the top of your deck, and then Goldengo can just draw them. So you're always hitting the cards you need. Pokestop isn't failing you anymore. You can literally put anything you want on top and just draw them. I think this deck is going to be so powerful. I definitely think you want to play more of these, and these are almost your main supporter heading into this format. Yeah, I do like the list. It's obviously, this is what my girlfriend's running, the double Palkia, making that Greninja even more important. I do see they've dropped Manaphy and Jirachi, which is interesting. I think I kind of like that, to be honest, because you can get these evolved up so quickly. It doesn't really matter. Let's take a look at 4th place then, and it is going to be the Ancient Box. So we are seeing some of these new decks come into play. This Roaring Moon here hits for your Ancient cards in the discard pile, so it does 70 plus 10 for each. We've got 12, 13, 17, and then obviously the Pokemon 18, 22, 26. So potentially could be swinging for 260 plus 70. So we're looking at 330, which is that number for Charizard. Realistically, you're not going to be doing that. You've also got 3 more of the Roaring Moon themselves. So potentially, yeah, you could be hitting any number you need, which I think the deck aims to do. This is hyper consistency. We've got 4 Nest, 4 Poker Gear. We've got 3 Counter Catcher, which I don't know if I like Counter Catcher because I feel like you're always going to be ahead with this deck. Obviously, taking knockouts into 2 prizes. I'd like to see some more Boss and more Ultra Ball, so you've got ways to discard these cards. I'd probably, yeah, change a few counts in here. You just need ways to get rid of them, get them in the discard pile, because you can't play this many supporters, so you're going to have to discard quite a lot of them. But yeah, this is going to be a really interesting deck. It also plays the Koraidon, which does, it's something like 30 times the amount of ancient Pokemon in play. You're probably going to have 5, so that's 150. So it's not bad. It's another way to attack. And obviously the Drum A-Spec in this one, letting you draw cards for each one in play. So this is going to be an interesting deck. I love seeing single prizes thrive. So I'm very excited to see how this does in the upcoming format. Like I say, it's probably either going to be this or I prefer Future Box, but we've not seen many results of it. So let's take a look at what else. So we've got a few more winners here. This one we're looking at Arceus Goodra. Now, it's also got the Vulpix. I'm torn on this. I think because Escape Rope's rotating, because Path is rotating, these cards become a lot more powerful. It's hard to get them out the active. You can Counter Catcher, you can Boss, but you're not really doing much else this turn if you have to Boss. Counter Catcher, you need to be behind, which honestly against these decks you probably will be, because they reduce damage or you can't hurt them at all. It's going to be sort of a counter box where you can just deal with most things in the format. I think it's interesting. I've struggled into Goodra with Charizard. It's a really difficult matchup. So it's just nice seeing new decks come into the format because of changes. You've obviously got the cape there to give it a ton of health. You've got the ponchos. I thought they were just for VMAXs. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know on that one. Okay. So yeah, there's a few new things we see in there. Some Judge, some Sharons to disrupt things. Obviously for the Arceus there. And other than that, it's just hyper consistency. Again, we've got the Turo to pick up the probably the Goodra once it's moisture starred and then takes another hit and then pick it up. This deck seems really annoying to play against. Very powerful though. And obviously with the Mist Energy, you're not going to be Requiem. You're not going to be gouging with... yeah, there's a few things it helps against. So I think we might see Temple of Sinnoh become more popular, just to whack it in play so you can actually take out those Pokemon. I do think going forward, maybe Roaring Moon, Giratina, stuff like that do play Temple of Sinnoh as a way around this energy because it can just shut them out of the game. Now let's look at some other first place lists. So we've got a lot of decks going back to Goodra. It's got the Zamazenta obviously, which can swing for massive numbers, very hard to knock out for a single prizer. Obviously playing Prime Catcher. Just a really solid Lost Zone list. I've been looking at Goodra to play in this format for Charizard, but I do think it gets better going into the next one. Like I say, Path to the Peak gone. Obviously you can pair it with stuff like the Zamazenta or, as we saw, Vulpix. So I am tempted. I have been collecting up Goodras so I can try this. So I am very excited to see it's been doing well. Maybe I was a little early on collecting the stuff and trying to build it as a deck, but now that I've seen some results, now that I've seen it is doing what I think it could do with the Mist Energy and other stuff, yeah, it's looking good for the new format, so I'm very excited to see how this does. It seems very annoying to play against, but I think it's very powerful. Another first place list, and what is going on? Goodra and Vulpix. Yeah, first place out of 29, I think that is. Again, very similar, doing the same thing. Yeah, I don't think we need to go through that list again, and then it's just another one. So maybe it's just gathering some Goodra lists that are doing well. And yeah, that's going to be quite a powerful combo in the new format. So this is a top 4 here. In first place, we've got the Goldengo using the Basculin to get some Pokemon out into play. I'm surprised we see so many water Pokemon, even Iridas, but no Palkia, because it seems like a no-brainer at that point. I do like this inclusion. I just think you absolutely go Palkia as well. Yeah, it's an interesting choice there. 14 energy seems very high as well. Ton of ways to search it out. There's a few different ways to play Goldengo, which is exciting. And then in second place, another Goldengo. It is Goldengo's time. We are seeing Goldengo take over the format. It's a very powerful card. I think Path was the only thing stopping it. It could just draw so many cards a turn. This is how I would play it. I think Palkia is essential to set up that Greninja early on if you need it. And I do like to see more of these in play. I'd like to see 4, honestly, or 3. Because I do think it is your best supporter going forward. I guess Worker's still good. You can draw a ton of cards. You can Pokestop, Worker, and then maybe put down another Pokestop. So there's still ways to just draw through your deck if you need to. Cancelling a clone is a must with Greninja. And then we see the new Dunsparce as well, which is quite interesting. Third place, we've got a Charizard, so it is still around. It is the Pidgeot build. It's what we've been seeing currently. One of the best decks, if not the best deck in format. Still strong going into the new one, so if you're playing Charizard, no need to worry there. Or if you're looking at playing Charizard, it's still strong in the new format. I'm surprised to see this 2 of Devolution TM. I think 1's fine, maybe even none going into the new format. Obviously, like I said, Bibarel is popular and it's just not as good against that. Yeah, it's good against this version though, so it's definitely worth playing 1. But I don't know about the 2. Also, I'm not sure about the Choice Belt when you've got the, I think it's called Maximum Belt. I'd maybe like to see like what is it, Rosanna's backup, so you can get back your belt, you can get back a Stadium and Energy, normally the Mist, and the Pokemon, so you could grab your Charizard, for example. I think it just works in this deck. I think it's a really strong card. I know it shuffles it back in, but you can always Pidgeot to grab it out. So I don't know. I've not seen it used anywhere, so I'm a little hesitant to put it in my deck and try it myself, but I'm going to test it out a little bit because I do think it's an overlooked card just because it's not very powerful normally. And in 4th place, we've got... What have we got here? So we've got Radiant Heatran. I do actually really think this Toedscool package is going to be huge going into the new format. Obviously, Chien-Pao's been very popular. Goldengo's been very popular. 2 decks that use cards to draw energy back from their discard. So this Toedscool tech in Charizard seems a bit silly. Seems like it's not much use. But going into the new format, when 2 of the other most popular decks and most powerful decks are playing cards that retrieve stuff, I think this is fine as a 1-1. It's also got the EX. I'm not too sure about that. I think this is fine, but yeah, that's not bad as well. And then it's just, it's got a 2/2 Arceus teched in here. There is a lot of Pokemon in this deck. This is not what you would normally see, but it's a different way of playing it, which I always appreciate. We even got Magma Basin in here. I guess that's for the Heatran. You really need many Stadiums now to make Charizard work. It was mainly just bumping Path before, so this is quite interesting. Taking a look at a couple more lists here then. So we have got it's a Lost Box with Roaring Moon, Raikou. An interesting one. It's got the Snorlax hitting those single prizes for good numbers or even into other Pokemon. It's got the Prime Catcher as its A spec. Not really much to say about this. This is a list we could see played now, honestly. Not really using much of the newer stuff. It's got some of the escape boards. I think you need 30 HP to reduce it. It might reduce it by 1 anyway, so I guess most of the Pokemon here are able to escape. Does also mean if they don't knock out a Roaring Moon, maybe, but that seems a little niche. Then we've got Giratina Lost Box. So it has got the Snorlax in there now. It's got the Maximum Belt. So it is still played without Arceus, so if you're playing it with a Lost Zone, still good to go into the new format. Not much change there, honestly. Obviously, Pathgon is a massive hit, and I'd honestly steer towards the Arceus version if you're looking to play this in a new format. Path going just really hurts this deck. It was one of the most powerful things about it. And yeah, I don't know. I think you probably have to change the deck now. You've got the 4 Nest Ball instead of Poffin, obviously not being able to search out your Giratinas, your Greninjas, which does make it more difficult and harder to set up, which I don't really like. We have seen a little bit of this. So the Metang is very powerful, able to set up your Pokemon. So we could see Dialga rise in popularity again. It was quite a good deck before. I have seen it played a ton on the ladder. So it would be very interesting to see this return. Playing this for extra health. It can just take 2 turns, which is really powerful. Swinging in for some big knockouts. I'd like to maybe see more boss, because I think that's important on the turn where you do take an extra turn. As they could always promote like a single prizer. Or maybe a Prime Catcher or something, just so you can switch around them. Obviously with Escape Rope gone, it's a little more difficult. And then in 4th place, again, it is a Charizard. This time the Bibarel version. Even with a Cleffer, I don't know if I like that. But yeah, that's it's really tempting me. So far, I think I prefer this version in the new format, which sounds insane. But if people are playing like 2 Devo TMs, it just seems maybe the call. I do think without Path, Pidgeot is just far too powerful, so I think I'm going to probably stick for now. But it's interesting to see a few different versions. This one including the Evolution TM, so it's interesting as well. And we do see the Prime Catcher instead of the Belt, which, yeah, they can't really attack early then. I don't really like that. It doesn't give you any option to go aggressive. So I think for Charizard, you probably want the Belt, the same as Giratina. Now we are just going to look at some Miraidon decks doing okay. So it's this one switched back to the Regieleki version. We've obviously got the 3/3 just to up damage. We even got a Thunderous in there, which is quite interesting. With the maximum Belt, it means you can take some early knockouts and even reach those things like Charizard much easier. But I do think it gives some life to Miraidon. We've not really seen it place in many tournaments in Japan so far in the new format, so I am interested to see where it goes. Taking a look at some of these other ones. Was there no Iron Hands in that? That seems insane. Yeah, absolutely need an Iron Hands, if not 2. We are going to see some energy stickers coming into some of these decks. I think you need the Belt. I think the Belt just helps you against so many matchups. And let's take a look at a couple more here. This one moving more into Zeraora and Magnezone, so that's quite interesting as well. And finally, a lot more of a standard list here. This is what you would expect to see maybe in this format. The Wishful Baton, obviously going on to Iron Hands, or aiding Iron Hands to share out his energy once he's knocked out. So there is some hope from Miraidon. If you're playing Miraidon, don't give up yet. Obviously, lists are placing. Lists are still being worked out. It's not really placed many spots, I will say, though. So it has dropped, and even on tier lists, it's not appearing on them anymore. So it's one to keep an eye on. Finally, let's go through Gardevoir. I'll look at Chien-Pao quickly, and then I'll try and find a future box, because it really is looking like a fraud deck at the minute. We've not seen any of it. So Gardevoir obviously needing new attackers. It's going into the Flutter Mane, focusing much more on the Scream Tail. I am surprised we're not seeing a Drifloon. So some decks are playing Drifloon. You've seen the Gallade come in. Even a Mimikyu EX could be interesting. So yeah, it's just needing new attackers. It's needing new ways to attack. So we've got the Luminous Cape. We've got the Cape from the A-Spec. So plenty of ways to buff damage. Moonlight Hill means you can heal a ton of damage as well. So I don't think Gardevoir is dead in any aspect, but it is definitely changing entirely how it plays. This one trying to focus on the Roaring Bolt here. I'm not sure about that. Seems a little shoehorned in, and then just straight Drifloon, Scream Tail. Doesn't seem like you have enough attackers here. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. But a few different ways to play Gardevoir moving into the new format. Like I say, this top forward, so we're going to take a look at Chien-Pao quickly. This is with Iron Hands and the Kyogre. So very similar to what we're seeing played now, but it's obviously got the added bonus of the Prime Catcher instead of cross switchers. It's also got no path to deal with. So this deck is looking good going into the new format. I do like the 3/3 of the Baxcalibur. It's just so important in your deck. Maybe even a 4th Rare Candy with TM Devos running around. Yeah, I think this is just going to go up in popularity, and we've seen it placed very high on tier lists. So if you're playing this deck, stick with it, because apparently things do get better. I did quickly want to draw attention to this before I get into the last few decks. This is a I Am Valiant deck. Obviously using a few different tricks here to drop the Tachyon bits. You can obviously throw stuff like Flutter Mane in the active, and you've got a lot more attackers here. This Entei Gouging Fire, I think it's called. Slightly better than Entei in some ways, slightly worse than others. It does mean it can hit straight away, but it does need extra energy. And they can't sort of play around the damage. You're hitting 260 no matter what. With Tachyon bits, you can pretty much reach anything in the format. With the belt and other things, it's just, yeah, it's looking like quite a powerful deck. I'm very excited to see how this goes, because Iron Valiant is one of my favourite cards and favourite decks currently. So I'd like to see that move into the new format and what people come up with. Let's take a look at a Roaring Moon list here. Obviously, again, one of the more popular decks. Roaring Moon, Darkrai. But it does have Baby Roaring Moon in, which is different. And there's not that many ancient cards in here, though. So the damage 4, 8, 9, 10. I guess you don't need to hit much. You're just trying to take out those single prizes, help with your trades. So I do like it in there. Maybe could see another one in there as well. We've obviously got the vessels. So it can actually swing for quite a bit of damage. And it's obviously a dark type, which is always good, swinging into Mew EX and Gardevoirs and other stuff. So yeah, very nice inclusion. Not too different for Roaring Moon. It's changing its... There's a few different ways to play it. So yeah, I'm sure looking around you'll find a few different ones. This is what I wanted to touch on briefly. Lugia V-Star is back apparently. It was rated in the lower tiers, like the Bs and Cs, what I've seen so far. But it is back, and a lot of people love Lugia. So I'm very excited to see how this does in the upcoming format. Using the Mincino, Cinccino line, which does damage for every special energy you have in play, so that works perfectly. Got the belt in there just to hit more damage with stuff like Tempest Dive, and obviously boosting these Pokemon as well. It does mean Snorlax can reach that 230 and take an EX knockout quite comfortably. Obviously the Mist Energy coming in, a ton of different special energy. This deck is looking quite good. I am glad to see Lugia back. Obviously it was the most popular deck for a while, then it just disappeared. So I'm very excited to see how it does in this format. It's looking pretty good though. Lists are appearing places. It is doing what it needs to do. So very excited to see how Lugia gets on. I'm just gonna flick through here. I'm trying to think if there's any other decks that we haven't touched on. Take a look at Roaring Bolt though. So obviously 4 of those. Sandy Shocks. I pulled a ton of these and I'm so glad I did now, because there might actually be some use for them. We do see this one trying to incorporate the Charizard, as the Koraidon does have fire in its attack. So it does make a little bit of sense there. And I actually quite like that. I didn't even think of that. I was like, I'm not putting fire energy in this deck. But the Radiant Charizard does sort of make it worthwhile. Although you would like the Greninja to throw energy away. And then maybe attach it with Sandy Shocks and stuff like that. But I guess you're throwing it away with the attack anyway. So that's fine. Could be an interesting deck. I don't know. It doesn't seem that interesting for me. I don't think it's going to be one that I'm going to be playing. But it is showing up in tournaments, so it's worth noting down. And it is doing fairly well. It's appearing, again, lower in the tier list, but it is appearing in them. Okay, I've managed to find one future box. This is similar to what I'm playing in my list. I don't have the Iron Threads, but I guess that's kind of good as well. I've increased the count on the Miraidons, the babies. I think they're just so important to set up with. So I've got 3 of those. I've increased some of the counts and some of the discard options, because it's really nice using the reboot to set up. Other than that, this is a fairly standard list, I would say. There's a few things you can switch around. But I think most important to note is these lists aren't perfect, which is why we're not seeing the future box take over and take some wins, because it still needs to be perfected. There's so many pieces in this deck, so many attackers, so many cards that you need to get right. I don't think it's there yet. I am going to start playtesting this, well, within this week. So I will be bringing those to the channel. So if you do want to see the playtesting for this upcoming format, I've proxied a ton of decks and we are going to get to it. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see that. Hopefully this has helped you in some way in deciding what deck you want to build or what deck you're going to settle on moving into the new format. That's all I've got for this episode though. So I will catch you in the next one.